Specific taxes. A fixed amount of tax per unit of a good or service sold, for example, £5 per pack of cigarettes. Ad valorem tax. A fixed percentage of the price of the good or service. In this case, the amount of tax increases as the price of the good or service increases.
Happy, spinning, clapping, laughing, dancing in the blackness of magic. Get it, have it.
Two graphs show how the supply curve shifts when a specific tax or an ad valorem tax is imposed. A specific tax causes a parallel upward shift because the tax is a fixed amount for each unit of output. Therefore, in this graph, S2 is parallel to S1. With an ad valorem tax, shown in this graph, the new supply curve, S2, is steeper than S1. Since the tax is calculated as a percentage of price, the amount of tax per unit increases as price increases.
Have it, bag it, throw yourself on the airplane and fly like magic. No sleep, no chance, no...
So the graphs here are exactly the same as the previous ones, however we have now added a demand curve. In this graph here, the pre-tax equilibrium is determined by the intersection of the demand curve D and the supply curve S1. So the price paid by consumers and received by producers is P star. The quantity demanded and supplied is Q star. If the government imposes a specific tax on the good, the supply curve shifts upwards to S2. The demand curve remains constant at D because demand is not affected. The new market equilibrium is determined by the demand curve D and the new supply curve S2. So the price paid by consumers increases to PC, and the quantity paid by consumers increases to PC, and the quantity purchased falls to Q1. The amount of tax per unit of output is shown on the vertical axis by PC minus PP, or the vertical difference between the two supply curves, whereas producers receive from consumers PC per unit. They must pay the government PC minus PP per unit. Therefore, PP is the final price received by producers after payment of the tax.
No need, forget about it.
Missing out a key point in our graphs earlier on. If you can remember the shaded bits, which were just below PC and just above PP, this signifies the government revenue. So the government is the only stakeholder that gains, as it now has revenue equal to PC minus P times quantity T. And this was shown in the figure. This is positive for the government budget.
Three big dreams, we're all about 'em. You finding it, take it in, it's all here. You and me, no one else, nothing else but us right now.
So just to quickly recap, consumer surplus is the difference between the highest prices consumers are willing to pay for a good and the price which is actually paid. And producer surplus is the difference between the price received by firms for selling their good and the lowest price they are willing to accept to produce the good. So, in a competitive free market equilibrium, consumer surplus appears as the shaded area above price P star and under the demand curve to quantity Q star. Producer surplus is the shaded area above the supply curve and under price P star up to Q star. At the competitive free market equilibrium, the sum of consumer and producer surplus, or the social surplus, which is the maximum, indicates the allocative efficiency has been achieved. And the allocative efficiency is also indicated, as we know, when the demand curve intersects the supply curve. So what is present here is quite a big welfare loss, a dead weight loss, and it represents welfare benefits that are lost to society because resources are not allocated efficiently. In this case, dead weight loss appears because the tax causes a smaller than optimum quantity to be produced. The tax has caused underproduction of the good relative to what is socially desirable,